Okay, so if anybody watched last night's game, they know that Michigan State almost looked unbeatable last night, and so we got our hands full. The time that Payne and Dawson have been out allowed the rest of the players to really grow. Now that Payne is back, he's played at a really high level, so we're going to have to really play a great basketball game on Sunday. So they're good. They got a great program. They got so many good things going their way, and but we'll still show up and do our best.
Brendan, why don't you start us off?
With Michigan State, when you see a team who one game goes 5 for 24 on threes and then goes 17 for 32, when they're that kind of erratic, and it's been that way for a few games now. Does that dictate how you game plan, or how do you handle that?
You know, that's what we always have to answer those questions to people. How do you figure that? You just don't figure those things. I mean, it's just so hard to even predict what your own team's going to do, let alone what another team's going to do. And you know, I should assume that they would have loved to have a couple of those threes against Nebraska, and they couldn't knock them down. As Nebraska's defense was really good, or was it just a matter of luck? So you know, we got to prepare for the team we saw last night.
John?
To that end, I mean, you got a Payne who can give you fits inside, but they can also step out and hit the three. Just talk about the challenge.
It's really hard to guard teams with, as we found out with Kaminsky in Wisconsin, to guard teams that can go inside, outside at their 5 position. It's the way we had success back in a lot of the places that I've coached, and we haven't had that 5-man shooting since Deshaun Sims was here. Shot the heck out of the net, gave people matchup problems. So it's difficult to do it. We got to just find ways to get there, and a lot of hustle plays involved, a lot of early reads you have to make, and you have to take some chances here and there.
Mark?
What do you think fueled the last win, and what are those elements that you think you can take into this one? And the way to get them up there.
You know, I think there was some sudden change going on at Michigan State. It happened just before when Corey Lucius came out, that all of a sudden Brandon Dawson wasn't there, and Payne hadn't been there. And I think those can be catalysts sometimes. They could also take a minute to just get reacquainted to it. But we played very well. We made the tough shots. We made guarded shots. But our defense was really good. And maybe that was because they were sort of transitioned into a new lineup, but our defense was better in the second half, and then we get our fast break going.
What did you learn from the Wisconsin film, and what did you take from it?
Oh, first of all, that Wisconsin was really good. I mean, really, really good. And when you catch them on one of those nights, you know, back in the day, that was a 70-40 game back in the day when they were hitting on all cylinders and you weren't playing very well. So, you know, feel fortunate that we at least made that comeback. But other than that, not a whole lot of things. We got to be quicker in some areas. We have to see things. Maybe it's only a step or two, but you see things happen a little bit earlier. We have to certainly play with a certain sense of urgency in those games. And like I said, it happens to teams in February like crazy. It happens to you all the time, but you see it more right now, and people get hit right between the eyes before they realize that maybe there's some things we got to do a little bit better.
Obviously, Nick has faced some pretty intense defensive focus from teams. That State game stands out as one where he kind of picked his spots and was really efficient. What did he do against Gary Harris to have the kind of game he had? Well,
some of the scores he had, Gary was not on him. So Gary is really a great two-way player. But at the same time, he's got to really do a good job of getting open, and cannot just allow himself to be guarded sometimes. Even if the harder you work to get open, the harder they got to work. That Gary Harris got to guard you. And we don't need Gary getting any more rest than he needs. So there's a lot of things that Nick can do and we can do with Nick and his teammates can do.
Rob?
What's been the feel this week, having not had a game since Sunday, but you almost get a little bit lazy with it, but then you also want to chop at the bit a little bit because you know who you're playing?
Yeah, it's been a very different feel because of the fact that we were playing with rhythm, but we were really tired. But then you get rest, and somehow you're even tired after the rest. So it's been difficult. Now we're going to a normal 2-day prep, which this should get our rhythm back, hopefully, because we practiced on and off all week trying to get them rest and repair and yet work on some fundamentals. So it's been a different week. I prefer not to have a bye week. I prefer to just play twice a week. And but it didn't happen, so we just got to. I think we did a good job handling it. Now we'll see how we do the next 2 days.
Nick? John, I think you guys have won 5 of 7 against Michigan State, 5 of the last 7. Does that mean anything to you? And did you ever think when you first got here that you'd be sitting here saying you won 5 of 7 against them?
Well, I don't think it means a whole lot unless we can win 6 out of 8. You know, that might mean some more. But they're one of the great programs in America, and so if we can beat them in any amount of time, not comparing how many wins, how many losses, that we can play with them, we can win on their court, we can beat them here, which we've been able to do on all last-second plays. Then we're making strides in the right direction, because they've been a benchmark for a lot. Should be a benchmark for a lot of programs, because they've been so successful over the last couple of decades.
Jennifer?
John, with the standings as tight as they are in the conference currently, how much do you stress to your team? You know, just 5 games left, and obviously the games seem to keep on getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. We try to show them, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel here, that it's a long year. You look at basketball season, it's other than hockey, it's the longest season of any in collegiate sports. So I think that it is, you have to show them and give them a visual of, all right, it's all we have. I think we have maybe 12 practices left before the Big Ten tournament. That's it, 12 times to get better. And some of those are just sort of cleanup practices. This is all we have. And I think they understand that Jordan Morgan knows he's counting down his last games in Michigan, his last home games. I think it resonates with them, but not as much. I don't think they look back on it when they're in the middle of the struggle and count the days like that. They just know they focus more on the next opponent rather than the end of the season.
When you first got here, what was the first thing that happened, or first thing somebody said to you that let you know that Michigan State is a really big deal?
I think I knew it somewhat from watching TV, and it's natural when you have 2 teams this close to each other. We had similar areas. You know, Marshall and West Virginia were both in the same state, and there was certainly a lot of support for both teams. I can't recall anything. I think I knew that. I think that certainly the first games that we played here, then I realized that a lot of people were really amped up about it, and I knew it was a great passion with this university to beat Michigan State.
Right in the middle of Neil.
Coach, when you're watching film to prepare for this game, given that they have Payne back, might have Dawson back, do you look less at kind of the previous matchup with them than you might normally do?
Yeah, we have an interesting mix of film through the video today of our first time with them and what they're doing right now with Payne. So we, as a coaching staff, we look at it all, what we pick for the players. We like showing themselves playing against them because they're more interested in that, and they can see their mistakes or the good things that they did. But we have to show them, some of the things that they did last night, so they have a better feel for what the Michigan State team who played a month ago has changed.
Rob?
So it's right where it may be a little bit different, that there's the hate among fans, or the extreme dislike among fans, or maybe the players aren't as much with the connection between Gary and Zach, but there may not be that same level of severe dislike for Michigan State as you would see in most, maybe at Duke, North Carolina, or a lot of other national type rivalries, that there isn't that same level of that.
I don't know that. I don't ask our players that. I know that this has been a dogfight every time that we've played. I mean, a severe, battle. And sometimes they've won and sometimes we've won. But I don't get into the hate and the dislike. I get into more, these are 2 teams that will give every ounce of their energy to try and win this game. And they're not leaving anything out on that floor. They're leaving it all they're leaving it all out on that floor for this particular game.
Right.
With those dog fights and all these games that come down to the last possession a lot of times, for you guys, I kind of get the sense that late games kind of just go with the hot hand or whatever play can kind of develop for someone, as opposed to having one guy who you say, what would you prefer there?
I think we're taking a summary through the game how they're playing us and what can be most effective. But we have confidence. There's 3 or 4 guys there that we feel if they have the right matchup, they have it going, that we won't hesitate. to go away from maybe your leading scorer. Who is our leading scorer? Well, Karras is our leading scorer. So are we going to him? But Nick and Glenn are really good players. And so Karras our leading scorer in the last 5 games is what I'm saying. So you sort of we can go any way. We really can.
With the last 3 last losses in the last 5 games after that Big 10 game winning streak and all that positive vibes and stuff like that, how do you how would you characterize the team's kind of confidence in late game situations and getting that winning edge back that they seem to really kind of corral?
I think any time that you have won so many in a row, and losses really affect you harder. And that's a good thing. You don't get used to losing, and then when you lose, it hits you between the eyes, as I said earlier, and I think that's always difficult for all of us to pick up and move on. And then losing at home, which very rarely happens. But the last time that happened, we played pretty well against Stanford, I think, after Arizona had beaten us here. So you just got to bounce back. But I never looked at this season and say this is going to be one of those seasons that would be we could be 16-2 or 15-3. It's a season that's going to be there will be a lot of losses in the champion for the champion this year, and so you just got to keep plowing through.
You lamented the defense in some of the previous games. How much of that work this week has been focused primarily just on defense?
I would say the normal amount, because everybody plays us differently offensively, but I think the normal amount. Sometimes it's not about more emphasis; it's just more repetition. And can the next time he's going to get this, especially when you're dealing with the youth of this team. Sometimes it's just that next time, all of a sudden, that aha moment, the epiphany comes. All right, now I can do this without overthinking it or being a step slow while I'm processing. So there was a lot of repetition this thing to form good habits.